From the top, my name is Donnie Grattan, and I'm a representative of the BCTLA. I'm the advocacy coordinator, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Jeff Chiba Stearns in to host our webinar today on the dawn of Asian People's History Month. I welcome you from the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. It's the territories in which I live and work. And I will do a quick introduction to Jeff, and then he will take it away. So Jeff Chiba Stearns is an Emmy-nominated animation and film director and highly acclaimed author and illustrator. As a filmmaker, Jeff created the award-winning feature-length documentaries One Big Happy Family and Mixed Match. Jeff has written and illustrated the children's books Mixed Critters, Nori and His Delicious Dreams, and the best-selling graphic novel On Being Yukiko. Jeff identifies as Yonsei, fourth-generation Japanese-Canadian, and he will address how themes of Japanese-Canadian history and multi-ethnic identity shape and inspire his visual storytelling. Jeff will also discuss his upcoming projects, a graphic novel on the life of Japanese-Canadian pioneer Tomokichi Homa, and Oji-chan's Dragon, a fantasy-based graphic novel that takes place during World War II in a Japanese-Canadian internment camp. As an educator, Jeff has presented hundreds of school author talks across BC and currently teaches at the Emily Carr University. And Jeff has recently presented at both my schools, spoke to almost 700 kids, and he's just fabulous. So Jeff, I'll leave it to you to take it away. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Donnie. I'm coming from Burnaby, British Columbia here, also on the ancestral territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And yeah, I guess I'll jump right in. I do animation. I always want to flip this first because I think you can see me. And as soon as I switch over to the presentation, I don't know if you can see me anymore. So usually I'll hold this up and show you that I'm a classical animator. So I usually kind of show the kids that when I animate, I've drawn hundreds of thousands of drawings. And a lot of it has to do because I have an early career in animation. And I like to show people that because of the amount of work that goes into doing animation and how that might have led me into other creative mediums. I'm going to try this here. I'm going to share the screen now and take you over to desktop 2. All right, let's do this. All right. So I'm hoping there still might be a pop-up box where you see me and my face and I'm waving my hands. If you can, great. If not, it's probably hidden somewhere. So, if you want to see me talk and not just look at static pictures, that might be the best way to try and pull this little box into the screen. Now, do you see, oh wait, maybe is it still, Donnie, do you see the slides?
We can see the first page where it's the welcome with your picture.
Oh, can you see this one now?
Oh, yeah, we can. Yeah.
Oh, is that all you see?
We see the delegate, you and all the attendants on the side, like we can see.
Okay, I just want to make sure because usually there's like a little thing around here that shows me that you're able to see my slides. But
Yeah,
I'm assuming you can see just the slide, right?
Yeah, just the slide.
Can you see this quote? This one here. Let me double. I guess I think I have to click one by one here. Can you see that?
Yep. Oh. Identity is shaped by sharing our stories.
Oh, thanks, Donnie. Okay, yes. I'll go back. So, as Donnie mentioned, I've done many things. I am an author, illustrator. Basically, I direct television and animation and movies as well. And kind of split my time doing a lot of different creative things. But for the most part, lately, I've been much more of an author, illustrator, and educator, I guess, going into schools and doing talks. So I like to start with this quote because I do feel that identity is shaped by sharing our stories. And a lot of the work I've done using sort of storytelling is based a lot on my own personal identity. And I usually take it back to this version of me. And this is me growing up in Kelowna, British Columbia, way back when. This is a photo of me when I was in kindergarten. And I'm standing with some family members. The one holding the fish, the giant Chinook salmon, that's my grandpa. His name is Hideo Chiba. And he actually is second generation Japanese Canadian. His parents came here from Japan, and holding that fish with him is my aunt, and next to me is my cousin. And I like to tell the students, I always kind of jump into like some Japanese, even though I don't speak very much Japanese, if any. I like to tell the students when I talk to them that I am fourth generation Japanese Canadian. But in Japanese, we actually have quite a few, we have names for every generation that has lived in Canada. The first generation, my grandparents or my grandpa's mom and dad, that generation is Issei, and that makes my grandpa's second generation, which is Nisei. My aunt is Sansei, and my cousin and I there were Yonsei. And that's my mom's side of the family. So we were Japanese Canadian on my mom's side. On my dad's side, we're actually a big mix of European things, English, Scottish, Russian, and German. And so growing up, I was a mix of many different cultural backgrounds. And sometimes to make it simple, my cousins and I, who were all mixed, would call ourselves Hapa because it was kind of a Hawaiian word that meant part or mixed. And that factors in quite a bit into the work that I had started to do in film and even in the advocacy work that I've done as well. So I grew up, that's me with the cheekbones, way back when I was in my 20s. And I went to the Emily Carr University of Art and Design. And there I studied animation. And these are some of my classmates. And I studied animation and because I basically grew up on a steady diet of watching animation and loving animation. And I'll talk about that in a second. But when I graduated from Emily Carr, I started a studio and it was called Meditating Bunny Studio Inc. And through the studio, I was producing a lot of films. And it's kind of funny because the studio itself is really the third bedroom of my house. So in essence, this is the studio space, and I sit in here and I create a lot of animations and books and all kinds of fun stuff. As the last about 20 the year 2000 to 2016, I produced and directed 9 films, 7 short animations, and 2 feature-length documentaries. I've been fortunate for the films that I have created. I've been nominated for Emmy Awards or won a lot of film festival awards. But a lot of this kind of came back to early inspirations that I had growing up. And these inspirations kind of go all the way back to what I was watching on TV, which in the 1980s, when I was growing up, was a lot of Saturday morning cartoons. And I also watched a lot of Jim Henson things like The Muppets and Muppet Show and Fraggle Rock. Loved puppets. Also, of course, North American children's books and comics were a giant inspiration for the work I did, especially Maurice Sendak. His style actually really seeped into my style as I was developing my own sort of illustrative style. 1980s anime and manga were also big influences in my life. I think being Japanese Canadian, I really gravitated towards this sort of style and medium, which led me into a lot of things that I love, like Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli movies. My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away are probably 2 of my favorite, so much so that sometimes I like to have fun and combine the two together. So this was a drawing I mashed up Totoro with Where the Wild Things Are. And as I was making my first short animated films in Emily Carr, I started to realize that a style I was developing had a lot of kind of influence of Japanese animation and this North American style. And so this style I kind of dubbed as Japanimation, which is a blending of Japanese animation and North American cartoon and illustration influences. As I kind of got into making films, the CBC contacted me and asked me to make a film about growing up in Kelowna, being mixed Japanese. And so I came up with the idea that, oh, I've got lots of interesting stories about growing up in the 80s and 90s as someone who had a lot of multi-ethnic sort of backgrounds in my culture. And so I made this film, What Are You Anyways, based on a question I got all the time growing up, which is, what are you? Which is such a strange way to ask the question, but a lot of it had to do with that identity-based question that I got. And in this film, I got to explore a lot about my own family backgrounds and how I identified as being mixed Japanese. And I flipped that animation that I showed you in the beginning, and that animation is actually from What Are You Anyways? And kind of shows students how there's about 5,000 drawings I had to create to make this 11-minute film. I since went on to kind of make more animated films. I got pretty famous for making post-it note animation, and I made a film on post-it notes called Yellow Sticky Notes that kind of blew up my career as an animator. And as you can see, here I am flipping some animation for the students. But that yellow sticky note film, I like to show how I actually had animated on post-it notes, and actually I had some of it here if you can still see this. And this is about 4 seconds of post-it note animation, and the stack was probably about as high as me when I was done. But I like to tell students a great way to make animation is to use post-it notes to make flipbooks. Now, as I went on, I did a lot of work. I kind of worked for Post-it Notes, and I got to meet and hang out with Art Fry and do some projects with him. He was the inventor of the Post-it Note, which was kind of a big deal for me as someone who basically ran my whole life on to-do lists made on Post-it Notes. I eventually went on to do commercials for Sharpie, and I was kind of in this sort of world of animation. So much so that I got into books. So they put me in stop motion books and independent animation books, and things were going pretty good. I eventually went on to actually get called to do a lot of animation workshops around the world. So I would go to Poland and do these AniJam workshops where students would animate on Post-it notes. And I kind of realized I'm like, oh, my love of teaching was kind of seeping back into my love of filmmaking as well. And so the two are kind of blending and mashing up again. And I thought that was kind of fun. As time went on, I directed a show called The Treebees, and it was kind of a lifelong dream for me to be able to make a TV show where I was combining my love of puppets. Because as you know, with my Jim Henson sort of inspiration, it was fun to be able to kind of bring this together full circle. And I got to work with puppeteers, create animation. We did about 60 episodes of the Treebees. It's a show that was on the Knowledge Network, and I think we made probably a good 60 episodes, have amassed about 60 million views on YouTube, actually. So a lot of kids kind of are excited when I kind of show them that I got to work on some TV episodes as well. Um, but my big love in life really is family, and family had such a huge part and role in basically why I produce and create the work I do. As there's a photo of myself, I think I was probably 12 with my dad and my mom and my sisters. And off to the left there, you can see that's my mom with her four sisters who all married men who were not Japanese Canadian, meaning that the Yonsei generation, the fourth generation, are all mixed Japanese, like me. And so you could see this is a family reunion that I attended once, and I realized, holy, look at all the kids, they're all mixed. I guess there's no going back now that we've mixed and blended so much. And so we have a pretty mixed and blended family. As you can see, 100% of my Japanese Canadian family intermarried after World War II. So nobody after my grandparents' generation ended up ever marrying anyone else of Japanese ancestry. So that made kind of for an interesting topic to explore. And I did that in a documentary called One Big Hapa Family. If you remember that Hapa word, it means part in Hawaiian or mixed. And in this documentary, I actually interviewed four generations of my Japanese Canadian family, which was really fun. You can see here, there's my aunt and uncle, and I got to go around and talk to a lot of community members. Those are their grandkids. And so our family has definitely evolved and shifted and changed. But how are we still identifying as a Japanese Canadian family? And that to me was the big question. And I realized after doing some research and talking to a lot of community members that 95% of all Japanese Canadians would interracially marry after World War II, which was a really big percentage. And what I realized after talking to people like Sakai Hashimoto, who ran the Nikkei Internment Center in New Denver, he was mentioning, that a lot of it had to do with what happened to Japanese Canadians after World War II and how we were displaced and uprooted from the West Coast and sent to internment camps to pick sugar beets in Alberta. Because of that, a lot of that factors into the high intermarriage rate in our community. So I talked to my parents, talked to my cousins, and really it was a great eye-opening kind of experience to see how we all sort of identified. I put a lot of animation into the documentary as well. And in this documentary, I'm not going to show you the clip now, but you can go on YouTube, and if you search One Big Hapa Family Japanese Canadian Internment Animation Sequence, you can actually watch a really great little clip that I was able to put in the film that gives you a really nice summary of the Japanese Canadian internment. And it's great. I use this as a resource when I do school talks to be able to show students a quick summary of what happened during World War II to Japanese Canadians. And it's a really great way to teach a little bit of that history to those students. Now, as I kind of was making films, it was great. I got to, show my films to sold out audiences all around the world. I was traveling a lot. I was doing big talks at Harvard and Yale and doing all these universities and flying around, and things were kind of crazy. I was getting to do guest lectures everywhere. I think I've done hundreds of university talks over the past decade. And that led me to doing a lot more work in the multiracial sort of identity sector. And that led me to actually creating, I was created a festival in town called Hapapalooza, which was basically Canada's largest and only mixed race arts festival. And we ran for about 7 years in Vancouver from about 2000, I think 11 to 2018. And we celebrated everything that was mixed, and a lot of mixed authors, illustrators, filmmakers, and just really had a
That's
really
so
great
sad.
time
There's only 10 people in
being
this.
able to do. I'm sorry, I think your mic's still on there, my friend. Um, Ollie, I think your mic is on. Is your mic on? I can hear you. Are you able to mute that? Oh, ask to mute. Okay, here we go. So as we were going through, it was great. Hapapalooza was really fun. It was a great way to celebrate multi-ethnic identity here in Vancouver. We had family days. It was kind of the festival we wished we had when we were kids, honestly, and that's what we kind of created the festival for. We're still kind of kicking around, but we've kind of taken a hiatus just because we've all been very busy lately. I founded this with author Annalyn Kay and promoter Zara Martz back in 2007, and we're still at the helm to this day. As I was going through doing all this work, it was kind of interesting because I started to focus more on multiracial identity, and I made a film called Mixed Match about why it was more difficult for mixed race people to find bone marrow donors if you have leukemia or like a rare blood disease. And that film led me to doing a lot more kind of work on that sector. But for the most part, it was really nice. I got honored by a lot of different places for the work I was doing. Emily Carr gave me their alumni award one year. I got a Harvard award for the pioneer work I was doing in multiracial identity and also diversity awards. Things were looking up. Things were looking really great. I got on the cover of the Georgia Straight and I was doing all these TV interviews. But then something happened in my life that sort of shifted things a little bit for me. And I was able to continue my love of visual storytelling, but finding a new inspiration to chase an old dream. And as some of you might be familiar with, I had a family. And so, when you have a family, you want to kind of be home, be present with your kids. This is my wife, Jen, and she's also mixed Japanese. And that makes our kids also mixed Japanese. So Takashi and Yuki there, they're English, Scottish, Russian, German, Japanese, just like us. And you can see here, they've grown up a little bit. But when they were younger, I wanted them to really be proud of their mixed identities, so I would draw on these post-it notes mixed animals, so they could see that animals could be mixed just like them, and sort of celebrate and give them some pride of being mixed, to see other animals that were mixed just like them. And so we were making all kinds of animals like hippopotamuses, there's a liger, a jackalope, turducken, oxalol crocodile. And that led me to putting them all together in a book, an ABC book called Mixed Critters. And here's Yuki holding the book. And this was just a simple book for me to kind of get my feet wet in the world of publishing. And so it was just a mixed up critter book where we had 26 animals across the alphabet. As you can see here, my favorite meowls, owl cat, Narus, here's a rhinoceros. And as you can see, just kind of fun. It's just a fun, kind of simple book, but kind of like a little art book. And kids actually get really excited when they read the book because they're like, oh, I want to mix up some animals too. And as you can see, when I mix animals up, I always show students that I think of the animals I want to mix. I just scribble them down because sometimes scribbling gets the ideas out. You don't always have to be precious with your art. And I want to teach kids that we can scribble to find the ideas and the shapes, the forms, and then the detail gets put in and color it up in Photoshop. And that's sort of how I created a page of the book. And as I mentioned before, it was great because kids were sending me drawings. Parents would like scan drawings and send them to me or take pictures. Here's a kindergarten student who was making some drawings. This is a grade 3 student sent their wolf, cheetah, rabbit, owl, wolf, cheetah, owl mix. Then I was going into classrooms and there'd be whole walls of mixed critters and kids were making buntipusses, bunny octopuses. And I thought this is really fun. I was inspiring kids to be creative and I thought maybe I'll stay on this trajectory of making books because it allowed me to be able to be home, be present with my kids. It was fun to do with the kids. I didn't have to travel so much anymore because before I had kids, I was traveling almost every second week and it was just really exhausting. And so I thought, what should I make my next book about? Well, I know, easy. Two of my favorite things, sleeping and food. And so I created a book called Nori and His Delicious Dreams. And it was about a little boy who was dreaming of sleeping in foods from around the world, which was important to me because when I was in Kelowna growing up, I brought sushi to school one time, and it was a time when no one had ever tried sushi, and not a single kid in the class wanted to try the sushi, including the teacher. And it made me really sad, that my mom and I had spent all morning making the sushi and no one wanted to try it. So I wanted to make sure if I made a book that it would be something where it would encourage kids to try foods from all around the world. As I got older, I would do strange things and put soy sauce and everything because I'm Japanese Canadian, and my friends would laugh at me and make fun of me because they were like, "Why are you doing that?" I put on spaghetti, pierogies, and then I started to draw this little boy. And I thought, you know what? This is kind of cute. Maybe he'd be dreaming of sleeping in foods. And I named him Nori because Nori means seaweed in Japanese. And that was something that the kids, when I was going to school, wouldn't want to try eating, even though it's very common now. And in the book, it was important that he has a Japanese Canadian mom and a European Canadian father, just like me. And so he's a mixed kid because I never saw mixed representation in my books growing up. So I started drawing Nori, and he would be drawing, he'd be sleeping on things like pancakes, which I thought, oh, that's not that diverse. So I started to put him in things like pancakes, burritos, or sorry, pancakes, there's burritos, sushi, shao mai, pad thai, things like this, and ramen. The kids get really excited when I show them the ramen. And it's a really great kind of way to encourage kids to be like, oh, wow, look at these foods. I've never tried that before. And the book kind of ends with him with a giant appetite after dreaming all night. It's a rhyming book, which is pretty fun. And that's how the book ends. But at the end of the book, there's a big checklist of the foods that Nori sleeps in. And the kids really get excited because they're like, oh, hey, I want to try, banh mi's. I haven't had a banh mi before, and so it's a good way to introduce kids to foods. Same thing, I always show kids that it doesn't take a lot of fancy equipment to make a kid's book. These are all drawn on photocopy paper. So I bring in my original drawings when I go into schools and I show them how I drew on just regular photocopy paper with like a black marker, added some details. And I usually do all the coloring digitally, so most of the drawings I show them are all black and white. But when I go into schools now, it's great because a lot of teachers use the book as a teaching resource to have do something like where they can draw themselves as cartoon characters sleeping in their favorite foods. And it's been really kind of fun. There's on the left is actually three-dimensional objects that they've created, these food objects that they put themselves sleeping in. So it's been kind of a neat way to kind of get kids excited about being creative. In 2019, Lillian Michiko Blakey, who's a Sansei Japanese Canadian artist, reached out to me and she sent me an email saying, "Hey, I've read your books, watched your movies. I want to collaborate with you." And Lillian, if you don't know, she's a famous Japanese Canadian artist. I knew her work. She's lovely. And I said, "Lillian, what do you want to do? You want to collaborate?" And she said, yeah, let's collaborate. So she also has made kids' books, and her family history actually involves them being interned and sent to pick sugar beets in Alberta. And so this is her parents. These are the ID cards her parents had to carry with them to prove they're Canadian-born citizens. As you can see, it's stamped there on the ID cards. And she would paint pictures of her life as a small child on these farms when they were interned during World War II. In fact, here's a very famous painting of her mom. The one thing I was noticing, I was looking at her work, is that her work is very different than mine, very realistic. And I always thought, well, how are we going to collaborate? And Lillian was very adamant she wanted to make an animation. And I thought, Lillian, that's going to be tough because your style is so intricate, so beautiful. And maybe there's something we can do that may not involve drawing thousands and thousands of drawings, because you can imagine that would take a long time. Here's a piece of work she did where she was connected to her grandkids. And I realized, I'm like, well, if you're connected to your grandkids, and it's very important to you, maybe we should make something for the next generation. So Lillian being Sansei, myself being Yonsei, we thought it was really important to create something that was intergenerational for that next generation. And what do kids love? Comics. So Lillian had actually done some comic work. And so I thought maybe we should do something like a graphic novel based on some of your family's story. And so we realized that the internment is a big deal in schools. We were learning this in grade 5 curriculum, grade 11, I believe, too. And I always talk to the students about how Japanese Canadians were interned and sent to internment camps in the interior of British Columbia or east of the Rockies to pick sugar beets, leaving places like Japantown empty, rounded up all the cars the government had confiscated from the Japanese Canadians and never gave them back, put them in Hastings Park, and then sent them to internment camps and separated actually the fathers away to work on road camps. So a lot of times these internment camps were just mother, kids, grandparents, but the dad might be missing for 2-3 years as they were sent away on a road camp by the government, which is the cruelest thing the government had done to Japanese Canadian families during this period, in my opinion. So that led us to making On Being Yukiko, which was started in April 2020 as kind of an internment project. We finished and printed the book in 9 months. We had an early release December 20th, actually, but the official release was January the 21st. We wanted them out in time for Christmas, which was a good thing on our part because we had a lot of orders as Christmas presents, as you can imagine. I think it's pretty unheard of to release a book in 9 months, but we independently published the book, which we kind of always had planned because we knew if we went with a publisher, the book might still be sitting on the inside the queue to be published even today, having been started in 2020. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years to get a book through the door. So we decided to just do it ourselves, and we did. And in the book, it was going to be told 2 stories. Emma, who was going to learn about her Japanese Canadian heritage from her grandma. These are some rough drawings I did. And Emma herself, which I'll explain, she's a mixed Japanese Canadian girl who's kind of questioning her own identity because she doesn't think she looks Japanese. And so we had to write a script. We took that script and I started to lay things out, ink them up, and color. But we had to remember that this was basically a collaboration. So here's Emma. She's sort of questioning her identity. Lillian had sent me 60 drawings of her amazing family story. And this is how the collaboration began, is that I would illustrate the story between the grandma and the granddaughter. And as we flash back into history, we start to see Lillian's artwork of her actual family story. And so you can see how the style jumps back and forth. So Lillian's parents or grandma came here as a picture bride. And we talk all about how they sort of started their lives off in Japan, came over as a picture bride, got married, and I talked to the kids about what that is, the picture brides, and how kind of a difficult situation that was for a lot of Japanese Canadians to come over from Japan during this period, especially when you meet a husband that you got married to solely by a photograph. But you can see how the styles kind of come into play. And we always know we're kind of returning to the present day when you see my work, this animation style, and we always see, when we go back in time, we see Lillian's artwork, and also try to create more of a warm tone with my work and a bit of a cooler tone with Lillian's work, as you can see with some of these illustrations. Some of the conversation delves into identity, which she has some friends that she talks to about her identity. And then we talk about the internment and what happened after World War II, and how Nataro's fishing boat was confiscated. Their family chose to go to Alberta to pick sugar beets. When they got there, they realized they had to be, living in a chicken shack, 9 people in a chicken shack for almost 4 years during this period. The farmer gave them 20 acres to harvest. They barely got paid any money to do that work. It was basically equivalent to what I would probably equate to modern day slavery, honestly. And they did not prepare themselves for the cold winter. So it was really harsh living. We talk about how at the end of the war, the atomic bombs were dropped, and it was a very devastating thing for Mackie and her family because her family lived very close to where those explosions were. But actually, an interesting fact with Lillian's family is they were deported back to Japan after World War II by the Canadian government. And that was something that 4,000 Japanese Canadians experienced before the United Nations stepped in and said that you can't deport your own citizens. Canada stopped doing that. So that's something we also discuss. I also discuss a lot with the kids the redress of the Japanese Canadians and how in 1988 Brian Mulroney apologized to Japanese Canadians for being interning Japanese Canadians, but also equating it to how my wife's family had about $50 million in property that was confiscated and never given back, and sold for pennies on the dollar, and they received probably about $200,000 in compensation for what would be $50 million worth of property. So for kids, it puts a bit more in perspective when you hear those numbers. As the book goes along, Emma forms a really great understanding of her family history, very proud of her family history, and more proud of like just being Japanese Canadian. So much so that Emma, who is our main character at the start of the book, goes by her Japanese middle name by the end of it, which is Yukiko. And that was the whole struggle that she had, is that why did her parents give her this Japanese middle name, Yukiko, if she didn't think she looked Japanese? And so by the end of the book, she actually asked her friends if she could use the Yukiko name from now on, because that's something she wants to embrace and be very proud of. So we thought that was a nice way to end the story. But for Emma becoming Yukiko, it was a nice beginning. She's kind of had this awakening, right? So in the book, we've got a glossary of terms because obviously we want kids to understand what some of these terms are, like what the internment camps were, what redress was. But most importantly, I want them to think about doing research. And research really is just the idea of researching you, researching yourself, talking to your family members, talking to aunts, uncles, or community members, or looking at historical things that might relate to your own past. And so I think that's a nice way that kids, when they read the book, have an in to thinking, okay, well, maybe I want to talk to my grandparents now, or my aunts or uncles or my parents. We've since translated the book to Japanese, as you can see here. The sad part is that I was never taught the language because it was lost after my grandparents stopped speaking it after World War II because of fear of racism that we were experiencing in our family after World War II. So my family stopped speaking Japanese after the Nisei generation, the second generation. Something I'd like to pick up again, but it's been very difficult to learn. We've been very fortunate. We've had lots of great reviews from Japanese Canadians that we admire and respect, like Joy Kogawa, Art Miki, who led the redress. Lots of great reviews on Goodreads, which has been very important for us. We've been very lucky. I've been featured on like the CBC radio shows like Now or Never, reading my books with my kids and talking about my Japanese identity and how it factors into that and how it's important for my kids to, appreciate that as well. Lots of covers of books or many things. We've also been really fortunate that the book has been picked up in a lot of schools, which is great. So it's been part of Hastings Reads, and it's even part of Bookfest next year in Maple Ridge and Pitt Meadows, which is great. I think Leanne, I see you on there. So I thank you for that. That's been wonderful. Joy Kogawa. If we had any great endorsement, there's one thing that, all the reviews honestly don't matter to me. It's what Joy wrote to me in an email one time. And she wrote, "Jeff and Lillian, what a thoroughly yummy book. I feel like a puppy with a gnarly bone, and I want to eat it, play with it, chew on it, and get to the bone marrow. I hope it's doing really well. I love the cover and the way Yukiko is clutching the picture to herself. That's the way I feel holding the book. I love your book so much it's on display so that it will be the first thing people see as they visit me. Congratulations." So to get Joy Kogawa's stamp of approval and knowing that Joy has been such a huge instrumental voice in our community to endorse the book in that way, there's no greater feeling as someone who sometimes I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm an imposter author, right? Because I've spent so many years in film. But to have someone like Joyce say that really kind of validates things for me. So on Being Yukiko, we've created a whole curriculum and lesson plans for the book. So if you want to use the book in your classrooms or in the libraries, Lillian is a former educator. I'm a former educator, and she worked with Deborah Ishii as well to create lesson plans and curriculum guides. So these can be downloaded off of our website, and they're quite extensive. They are huge. They can be an entire curriculum actually based on the book. As you can see here, some of the modules and things that you'll see. Landscapes of Justice was very, very, very important for us to kind of work with. A lot of the other Japanese Canadian communities, organizations were also important to work with. And that was on Being Yukiko. Now, what am I doing? Well, I am working on 2 new graphic novels. One is on Tomokichi Homa, Canada's first social justice champion. And I've entitled it Tomi, The Unyielding Spirit of Tomokichi Homa. It's by myself and Ali Adachi, who is the illustrator. I am writing this book. And it all started in 2003, or actually last year, 2023. I was at Tomokichi Home Elementary in the Jun Chiba Library. Before you ask, yes, Jun Chiba, I am somewhat related to Jun Chiba. I did not know that at the time, but I figured it out. And if I have time, I'll expand on it later. But I didn't know who Tomokichi Homa was when I visited the school. I learned about him and we realized, whoa, this man had done a lot in the early 19th century to advance Japanese Canadian rights and freedoms. But he was quashed by the BC government that was very racist at the time. So I was contacted by NCAR, which is the National Coalition Against Anti-Asian Racism. They contacted me, said, hey, Jeff, can you write this book on Tomokichi Homa? And it is actually a really important board of directors. People like Santa Ono, who is the UBC president, are on there, a lot of honorable chairs and judges, and said, okay, I better do this. So to February, just recently, I started doing all the research, and I've read through hundreds, if not thousands of pages of research about this man. And so much so that I wanted to write the book from his voice. And there is nothing from his voice that existed because he had a fire in 1922 and he lost all of his diaries. So all I have to go on is sort of what people have researched. And to get his authentic voice, I reached out to Tenny Homa, who is his granddaughter. And I've been working very closely with Tenny, who lives in Kelowna. And she wrote a book on her grandpa called Tomokichi Homa, The Story of a Canadian. And she has been instrumental in helping me find the voice that we have put in the script. So as you can see here, a lot of the script is actually written from the voice of Tomokichi Homa. Actually, as he goes through his life, as he was actually from a very, very prominent samurai family. And when he moved to Canada, and he was one of the first Japanese Canadians to come to Canada. He was a fighter and he had a lot of honor. And so he was a leader and he actually helped fight for the right for Japanese Canadians to vote. And he won twice in the courts to get the right to vote. But the government of BC was so racist, they took it to London and shot it down with the Privy Council, who decided that it was up to the province to allow who could vote. It wouldn't be until 50 years later that Japanese Canadians would be allowed the right to vote. And by that point, Tomokichi had passed away about 4 years prior to that. So we never saw his dream realized. Ali is doing these sketches that we're kind of trying to bring the story to life. And it's going to be kind of a manga style because we want kids to really gravitate towards the style. It's something that I'm not illustrating because I am working on another book right now. But she has been wonderful to work with. She's a young illustrator, a graduate from OCAD. And as you can see here, she's kind of working on some ideas for the cover. And so the idea is sort of the phases of Tomokichi's life from being a young boy when he was living in a samurai village to now when he was a social justice champion at age 35 when he took the government of BC to court, but unfortunately lost. He eventually would go on to do many other great things like establish schools and hospitals for Japanese Canadians in Steveston and do other great philanthropy work as well. But again, a lot of people haven't heard of him. And so this is part of the reason why we're trying to bring his story to life. The next project I'm working on is a graphic novel called Oji-chan's Dragon, which is for me a story I've been wanting to work on for years. And it is a fantasy-based story that takes place during the internment. It's like Miyazaki meets the internment. And it's about a grandpa who has a connection to Japan still, and he can sort of bring through these portals Japanese spirits like Tanuki and Kappa and yokai. These are called yokai, especially Ryu, which are dragons. And he has 2 younger grandkids who are going to go off on an adventure once he passes away, which I just gave a little spoiler to. Now, it takes place in New Denver, which was an internment camp in the interior of BC during World War II, where Japanese Canadians were incarcerated. And you can actually visit the museum there to this day and see the actual internment shacks that Japanese Canadians were forced to live in during this period. And you can see there it was pretty terrible rustic living, honestly. I have been very fortunate that the Japanese Canadian Legacies Fund, which is awarded a redress to Japanese Canadians last year, is awarded me a grant of $20,000 to work on this project this summer. So I am going to hit the ground running as soon as all these school talks are done and just focus. The good news is I have a first draft completed, and I just need to go through and really polish things up. I love Japanese woodblock prints. I love to draw things in them. And so the cover of the book should look somewhat like this, where I'm drawing my animation style over top of these Japanese woodblock prints that I am trying to create. Last but not least, shameless self-promotion, because as an author, if I didn't self-promote my work, I would be a terrible author. And if you want to check out On Being Yukiko, you can actually go on bit.ly On Being Yukiko for a review and actually download a digital copy. So feel free to do that. But I am a former educator. I used to work in the SC23 as a teacher, worked at Center for Arts and Technology as a college instructor. Now I work at Emily Carr. I am part of Art Starts. I go into all these libraries and I do presentations. As Donnie knows, I have done a lot of presentations. I have done a lot of talks over the course of the last couple of years, going into schools, you can see here, and talking to kids from primary, intermediate, all the way up to middle school and some secondary as well. So you can see here, I think I talked to about 10,000 students last year, if you include all the online talks I've done. So it's been quite an adventure. This year I'll be on track to do about 80 schools and deliver almost 220 separate primary and intermediate presentations. It's been a whirlwind. But the fun thing is I get to go in there and teach kids how to draw. I do drawing lessons with the kids, and my thing at the end, I draw one of the students, and everyone's like, "Whoa, look at you drew one of the kids!" And you can see here that they get inspired and they do their own drawings. I have templates that if you want any of this information, I have all the PDFs up on the chat. You can pull them off the chat and get them live. I've been very fortunate that the people I've worked with have given me very nice testimonials, including Rebecca Rubio from Richmond there. She's you can read those later. But if you want me to come in, there is a PDF there that shows you what my rates and what the talks are all about. I have had to sort of up the rates a little bit next year because of CARFAC. They are recommending that we at least charge $700 for a flat fee for the day. So I'll come in and do 4 talks during the day in the library, usually 2 classes at a time, as much as you can kind of fit in the library, usually about 2 classes. And with that, it's I also do just one-off presentations. Each presentation is about an hour, and the primary presentations, I talk about the kids' books. For the intermediates, I talk more about On Being Yukiko and how identity, history, and Japanese Canadian history tie into that book as well. So it kind of covers a lot of things. The fun thing is that I love to draw in the books, as Donnie mentioned, and I will sit there for and watch TV and just draw in these books. But the cool thing is because I'm local and I can travel around, I actually get to I like to give order forms home. I'll come back to the school, fulfill orders that students bring back, and they get really excited for books again. The kids are like, "Whoa, where's my book?" And hopefully down the road, I really hope a kid picks that book up, looks at that signature and that drawing I drew from them, and they get inspired to want to go make more books too. So that's a little way that, yes, I supplement the ink, I think I keep my fees pretty low in comparison to other authors. Like I think C will, they sort of advise you charge $1,200 a day. I'm charging 700. So I'm keeping it low because I am kind of, also sending home book order forms and stuff too. But class sets, if you want to get some, there's a whole bunch of schools that have gotten class sets. I have a form there if you want to get it. There's a bit of a discount, obviously, for future librarians. I'm getting there. On the last BCTLA 2024 conference in Victoria, I am doing 2 sessions, how to teach visual storytelling through student-created graphic novels. I will help you on the things that I have learned. I've done a lot of art starts, and I've done graphic novel workshops. I'm doing 2 of them right now at Kerrisdale and Hastings, where I'm teaching students how to actually do graphic novels based on family history and taking interviews and bringing their family's histories to life. And then session 2 is an independent publishing journey, because everything I do is independently published. And I have found that that has worked perfect for me because I get to control and dictate how my work is being seen, distributed, and other things. So, and I'll talk a little bit about how in this landscape, especially with AI, how are librarians able to navigate this space with quality and knowing who are these authors who are just making all these books and putting them out in the world, right? So this is why I've worked so hard to do these kind of things. I am available for district keynotes and teacher librarian presentations. If you're want me to come do a talk for the Victoria group, I've done Central Okanagan, I've done Burnaby, I've done Vancouver. So I'd love to come talk to your group. And I'm developing a graphic novel workshop that might be a 3-hour workshop, and that may or may not be coming next year. It depends on if I'm still working on these graphic novels. But I'd love to. That's another sort of workshop I'm working on, where we can take a students and we can actually work through a whole little graphic novel mini lesson. Books are available on my website at meditatingbunny.com/store. And I have found bliss in life because I love what I do. I get to create, I get to make things, and that has really made all the difference in my life. And I hope we can stay in touch. Email me if you have questions, info at Meditating Bunny. Follow me on Instagram at Meditating Bunny. And there you go, Donnie. I have done it. That is it. I will
Ooh,
now be
okay.
sharing,
Um,
and I am back to you. Holy cow. Okay, I did it. I didn't know
all
if I
right.
could do the whole thing.
I feel like I should just mute you for a second, buddy. I want to give you some accolades. So in the words of Joy Kagawa, what a gift to Japanese Canadian history. Unbelievable.
Oh,
Jeff,
thanks.
you are authentic, you're versatile, energetic, and tremendously talented. We are grateful for your time today, and I encourage any teacher librarians out there to invite you to their schools. My own students made amazing connections to your personal, engaging stories and adorable artwork.
Oh,
We bought several books for our library, and several kids bought for themselves, and outside of school, people bought. It was awesome. I think I figured out which session at the conference I want to attend with you because
uh-oh.
I'd love to teach my own kids how to do graphic novels.
Oh,
Um,
yes. That'll be
and
I think that'll be a very, very overprescribed one, but we'll see.
super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of thanks coming out in the chats right now.
Oh, great.
And I just wanted to mention that Sarah, I don't know the last name of Sarah, but I did a random draw by writing down all the attendance names and spinning my pencil, and whatever um, name the end landed on, it was Sarah. And so Sarah has chosen On Being Yukiko for her free book. And Sarah said, like, let me read what she said. How could I choose? On Being Yukiko, my own children are mixed kids of Japanese European heritage. So there you go. You're preaching to the
There we go.
choir, Jeff.
Wow.
I mean, that's wow, just how things happen. But I just wanted to say thank you so much. And you left like a minute for questions,
Oh,
but
geez.
I
Yeah.
know you're super approachable. And I know if you go to his website and you email him, Jeff will get back to you. And he'll either say, I'm fully booked this month. What about next month? Like he doesn't stop. This energy you saw, he speaks at about, I don't know, like a few seconds per minute words slower with the kids than he did with us. The kids are super engaged. I have lots of photos on my phone of like jaded grade 7, just like, what? And like wanting him to draw them. And it's super fun. So yeah, just going to quickly check to see if there's any questions in the chat, mostly just thank yous.
I should
To
probably mention too that I am fully booked until June,
yeah.
up to June, and I am booking for next year. But this year it's been incredible. Like it's just sort of like that snowball that keeps rolling and getting bigger and bigger. And I've been really, really, really fortunate that I never thought of myself as kind of coming back into schools and doing this kind of a thing, but I have really enjoyed it and loved it. And connecting with the students is something that I'm really passionate about. So I think I like to say that's showing, and the fact that I am fully booked until the end of the school year is a true testament to being
Don't
able
forget
to
you're coming back for
do
me
that.
June 11th, right? That's in there somewhere.
It's in there. Yes,
Yeah,
you are
okay,
in there.
good.
Yes, you
Yeah,
snuck in right under the
good.
wire. So,
Okay. And
but yeah, I would say next year is probably I'm getting a little burnt out because it's been go go go. And it's not a bad burnout. It's a good burnout, but it's just that yes, I think I need to start focusing a little bit more on. I'm still trying to write the Tomokichi book while I'm doing all these talks,
oh
and so
man.
I've been meeting with Tenny at night and doing all this stuff. And this week I'm meeting with Jeff Meggs, who's doing another round of edits. So it's a busy, fun time. I'll tell you that.
Well, thank you for letting us into the world of authorship. It's really cool to see. And
Yeah.
just another plug, like the teachers that attended with the classes were like, that was like the best presentation ever. He hit all the marks that I was trying to do with my class. So yeah,
Oh,
next
good.
year though, yeah. Thank you again. One more quick check on the chat. I see a couple things have popped up. Yep. Oh, you're going. I see you're going to Chilliwack. Yep. That's good. People are happy that you're going out to see them. So
Yeah, and I will do mostly right now, just a heads up. I do because I'm based in Burnaby. I will do the Lower Mainland. As far as Chilliwack, I did 4 rounds of 4 weeks in Kelowna this year as well, and they did like a week long sort of session. If there are people in like Victoria or on the island, and because we're going out there next, I'm heading out there for these. I might actually try to see if I can book some stuff in Victoria prior to the BCTLA conference. So if that's the case, if you are interested, anyone's from Victoria or you know people from Victoria, I'll put the word out there that get a hold of me. Perhaps we can do something the week of before the conference. And that makes it a little bit more kind of, because it's easier for me if I have to
Yeah,
pay for the ferry and find accommodations to stick around for a bit longer just to do that. So
exactly.
who knows? That might be something kind of fun. So I will travel if there is enough interest in a particular district to do so. But up to right now, it's been pretty busy just in the Lower Mainland, as you know, with all the schools that are out here. So it's been wonderful and fun altogether. So yeah,
Yeah, awesome. Well, very timely. Thanks again on behalf of the BCTLA to come and see us on the eve of Asian People's History Month, because I think this gives us some food for thought and bringing books into the schools and topics. So thank you, Jeff. Really
yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good
All right.
night. We'll see you
Thanks,
next
Donnie.
time.
All right,
Bye.
thanks, BCTLA. Yeah, if everyone's got their cameras off, say hi. I wouldn't mind saying,
Yeah.
seeing everybody. It's
Yeah.
unless you're all like, no, it's the end of the school day. I'm out. Anyways. But no, thanks everyone. I hope I get a chance to come to your school, and I look forward to connecting with all of you at the BCTLA conference. Thanks, Donnie. I appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks, Jeff. See you
Okay.
later.
Bye now.